Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the subject Culture of England. I am Tursunov Mirzo, docent of English Linguistics Department. So today we're going to have lecture number 5 with you. The start of the period early Middle Ages in England, the Norman Conquest. And we have 5 plans to discuss with you today. King Edward's ruling in England, the Battle of Hastings and its outcomes, start of Norman rule in England, establishment of feudalism in England, and the influence of Norman conquest in the English language. First of all, I would like to mention you that before the Middle Ages, the last king of the Danish period was Edward the Confessor. Probably you are interested in the question, why was this man nicknamed as Confessor? Edward was given this title because he was fully engaged in religious works. He was a very religious man. He paid much attention to the development of religion in England. He ordered to build a church in every village of England. That's why he was given the name of Confessor. The problem with Edward the Confessor was that he didn't have any children after himself. That was a big problem for England, because there was no heir after him. Next, please. And that's why it was a big problem for English government whom to choose as next king. And they decided to choose Harold Godwinson as the king of England. He didn't have any royal blood, but he was a brave man, he was an Anglo-Saxon man. Yes, Edward the Confessor had a nephew in Normandy, but local Englishmen did not want Norman kings. That's why Harold Godwinson was chosen as a king. As I told you, students, there was William the Conqueror, who was living in Normandy and who claimed his rights to the throne of England, because he stated that he was the nephew of Edward the Confessor, and he claimed his rights for the throne of England. William was given the nickname of the Conqueror because he conquered many territories. He was good in wars, in battles. He was, we can say, professional conqueror. That's why he was given the title of William the Conqueror. He was, after his father's death, he became Duke of Normandy, and he wanted to take the throne of England after he knew that Harold Godwinson became the King of England. Students, one of the main events in the history of England was related to the Battle of Hastings. It was the first war when the new age, Middle Ages, was about to come to England. That was the Battle of Hastings. So how did the Battle of Hastings start? As I told you, Harold Godwinson was selected as the king after Edward the Confessor's death, but he didn't have any royal blood. When William the Conqueror heard about this news, he gathered a big army in Normandy and marched towards London in order to revenge on Englishmen who didn't give the throne to him. And the Battle of Hastings started in the city of Hastings. It was one of the cruelest battles in the history of England, between England and Normandy, between the two kings, Harold Godwinson and William the Conqueror. Battle of Hastings was marked with severe fightings of two sides. We should claim that anyway, French people, Normans, were more skillful in battlefields than Englishmen, because they Normans had more wars, more battles to fight, and that's why they had more skills in battlefield. Besides, Normandy had better weapons for that time. Their army was more modernized than English army. Probably that was one of the reasons why Battle of Hastings was unsuccessful for England. And students, as I told you, Norman army was quite professional for that time. They had special archers, they had cavalry, they had foot soldiers. 6,000 men, approximately 6,000 men, approached to the borders of England, and they were professionally prepared for such severe wars. To tell you the final result of the Battle of Hastings, I can state you that England lost in this battle. Historians claim several reasons of this. As I told you about, William the Conqueror was a good ruler and he had a good army. They had more modernized weapons, and there was one more main reason of English loss. It was related to the exhausted soldiers of England. Before the Battle of Hastings, Harold Godwinson had to fight against Danish people who also claimed their rights to the throne of England. And in the northern part of the British Isles, there was a fight between Danish people and Harold Godwinson's army. And when they got victory, they heard that another enemy, Normans, were approaching England. So the army of Harold Godwinson was very tired when they reached Hastings, and it was probably one of the main reasons why the battle ended in English loss. Students, there are special tapestries in the culture of England where all historical events are depicted. And now you can see one of those beautiful tapestries in the history of England, which defines events which happened in the history of England. That was a tragical end of Harold Godwinson, when one of archers shot into the forehead of Harold Godwinson. That was ended with his death, and after English army heard that their ruler, the King Harold Godwinson, was killed in the battle, they started running away from the battlefield, and there was a big mess in the battlefield that resulted in English loss. So this tapestry shows us how tragical the destiny of Harold Godwinson was. And here I can add you one more thing, students, that Harold Godwinson was one of the rulers whose reign in England was very short. He probably was ruling England for only 6 or 7 months, as it was the shortest period of reign of any king who ruled England. That was the destiny of Harold Godwinson. So William the Conqueror one more time proved that he was a real conqueror who was the king of Normandy. After the victory in the Battle of Hastings, he captured England as well, and he became the ruler of England as well. At the same moment, he was the king in 2 states. So, as I told you, there were some misunderstandings when the Normans started ruling country, when William the Conqueror approached to London. Local barons opened London gates and asked him not to kill anyone anymore, because there was enough deaths in the Battle of Hastings, and they said that they would accept the rule of strong William the Conqueror. And the Norman rule started in England. With the Norman rule, the Middle Ages also started in England. Students, William the Conqueror was colonized at Westminster Abbey in 1066 at the Christmas Eve, and it was 25th of December. Coronation ceremony was was made at Westminster Abbey, as I told you, and there was one little story, there was one mass in coronation ceremony when Archbishop took the throne and put it took the crown and put it on the head of the William the Conqueror. Local barons shouted, "God save the King! God save the King! God save the King!" And it was wrongly understood by French people who didn't understand English. And they thought that local barons were going to kill William the Conqueror. And they took him and started running away from the ceremony of colonizing the king. So the coronation ceremony ended in mass because of not knowing English. You see why English is important for everyone. And with the coming of Normans into England, feudalism started in this country. Probably you know from the subject of history which you started at school. Feudalism is total owning of all lands by one person. All lands of England belonged to the king only. He he owned all lands in the country. And the king, William the Conqueror, was based on one basic opinion. It was he always referred to divine right of the king. Like he said, God gave me divine right. I am the only person, the most powerful person on the earth after God, and I have right to rule as I want. It was a basic principle of ruling the country. And feudalism made nation of England's nation's conditions even worse than before. People had to work more than before. They were still paid very little money, and condition of people got worse and worse. And English lands were presented as tributes to Norman barons, to Norman knights who participated in conquering England. And as usually, the lowest rank of feudalism system was peasants. Peasants were working hard from morning till night, and their conditions got worse, as I told you. And students, what about culture? So Norman culture anyway influenced local people. And several changes happened belonging to the languages as well. Norman became official language of England. Can you imagine? French is official language in England. That happened at the beginning of the Middle Ages. Latin became language of church and court. What happened to English? The English language was spoken only by poor people, peasants, iron men, and some poor people, peasants, iron men, and shoemakers, and professions who got very little wages for their work kept English for future generation. And that was somehow bad period of the English language when English was not so popular in its own native land. And common people kept English for future generation, as I told you. And one more information, students: William the Conqueror, being the king of England, never wanted to learn the English language. When he was several times asked, and maybe like when he was asked, when he was even begged to learn the language, he refused. He liked French more. He spent most of his time in France, even being a king of England. So it was his choice. And the English language was influenced by Norman, by modern French. And you can see some words which were borrowed from French into English. The popular ones were marriage, restaurant, chef, garage, damage, and etc. And students, one more information about the Norman period is related to the book named Domesday Book. So students, when William the Conqueror established feudalism in England, he wanted to know how much land he owned, how much property he gained from his new country. And that's why he sent special groups of people throughout England to write every information about his new population down. Like how many cows, how many goats, sheep people had, how many children they had, how many hectares of land they had. Everything was copied, everything was noted down in the book called Domesday Book. And the question is, why was the book named as Domesday? In Middle English, doom meant judgment. Day was day. So people thought that judgment day came when they were asked so many questions about their personalities. And they said, we are being asked so many questions, so judgment day came, doom day came. But in real, there were two main doomsday books. First Doomsday Book and second Doomsday Book. Big Doomsday and Little Doomsday. And why was this book important for William the Conqueror? First of all, he knew much information about his new country, about England. He knew how many new hectares of land he owned, and every information was written in the book. That was the main target of the book, why the book was made. And one more information, students, and people did not understand French. I mean, local English people did not understand French. And there were translators who translated every sentence of those people to the local English people. And Doomsday Book consisted of 900 pages, over 2 million words, and covered 37 counties, I mean regions of England, and it lists over 13,000 places. Students, for today, for present day, Doomsday Book is very precious book. And the question is why? First of all, we as people who are interested in culture and history, and for scientists, for anyone who are eager to know something about the Middle Ages England, can get very important, essential information, data about that period. We can picture some important historical figures, information to our mind about those people, about that period, with the help of the Doomsday Book. And even, so as I told you, it was written, it was asked in French, written in Latin, and today you cannot understand what is written here, but especially professional people who know Middle ages, languages got to know what was written in the book. And today, in the British Museum, some pages of the Domesday Book are still kept, and if you visit the museum, you can see and enjoy some pages of this beautiful book. That's it for today, students. Thank you for your